done for me lately? It's Coons. What have y'all done for us lately? And if there's no answer, the only thing we owe them.
Welcome, everyone. Tonight we have someone who's no stranger to the show, stranger to the program, but he's in a different capacity. Coming on today, he's coming on today as a candidate for the West Ward of Newark, New Jersey. He's running for City Council, and I know for him, this running for City Council was not something that was ever in his plans. um, Sometimes we may not even be into politics or want to talk about politics because we just know what comes with it, far as the extra stuff. Um, but at the end of the day, one thing that we all learned is that if you don't do politics, politics is going to do you. So tonight we're going to have a conversation. Muta is an activist. He's an author. He's very, very instrumental in every day, all day with our children. This is something that he does voluntarily. And this probably is the reason why he decided to run because, like I said, he's an author of a children's book. And he's someone, and he'll get into it. He's someone that comes from the very ward that he is running for. So he's not an outsider to his community. He's not somebody that they should feel like, oh, he's a stranger. They seen him grow from a young man, a young boy, to a young man, to the adult, to the man, to the mentor, to the very same kids in the area where he grew up in. A lot of people can't say that. A lot of people feel like they outgrow their area or they think they're different than their area. Um, as Muta would say, I come from the mud, so I'm gonna give back to where I came from. Without further ado, Muta, what's going on, bro?
Peace and blessings, brother. Peace
Yeah.
to everybody that is looking on. Listen, man, let's get into it.
So we was talking a couple weeks ago, and then I had all these technical difficulties, man, which was crazy. Really, it was a sight. And I'll get right to it. It was basically an infrastructure in my home. Um, what personal experiences led you to move from community activism into running for city council?
When I first started doing my due diligence for the community, for our youth, right? Like you said earlier, politics wasn't even on my mind. It was how can I add value to the neighborhood in which I come from? I'm Muslim, so charity starts at home. So we supposed to do for ourselves, do for our family, then do for our community, our friends, right? And what I realized is that there was no resources in which to do these projects that I wanted to do inside my neighborhood. I wanted to take the kids on trips outside of the neighborhood. And when I go to, whether it be the people in the housing authority to see whether there's funding or dollars to make that happen, or whether they would provide a bus to make that happen. It never happened. But we got 5 police cars inside my neighborhood. When I go to the politicians and ask them, how can we do something to, give the kids a different experience? There's constantly excuses, and next thing you know, they're not available. And I just got frustrated, like, well, if you guys aren't going to do the work, I'm gonna continue to do the work, but now I'm gonna be a contender now.
Mm, mm. Let me ask you, what does the West Ward need most right now that you believe it is not getting?
All right, so we in the worst housing crisis in American history right now. We need alternatives to affordable housing. So whether that be new ideas such as tiny home villages, whether we need to turn some of these vacant lots into container home villages or something. We need new ideas coming into our government to help our people that are getting pushed out. Um, Another thing, we have a disconnect between our well-to-do, our not well-to-do, and our youth. So,
The audience, when you say the our well-to-do in our youth, explain to the audience that may not understand the geographical area of Central Ward of West Ward and how it's located and how it's pivotal to up the hill and then downtown North.
all right. So, for those who may not be familiar, South Orange Avenue is the major artery of the West Ward. So, when you're talking about the West Ward, we got an area called our number blocks, right? This is a very impoverished section of Newark. Um, Less than 10% home ownership in this area. So we got a bunch of renters and low income renters that are constantly fluctuating in and out of housing situations. But then you also got your Velsburg area. So when we speak about the Velsburg area, you do have some people that are doing well. Some people that own their home ownership. So the home ownership is a little bit higher in the Velsburg area, roughly about 20 something percent. And you got a large senior population inside the Velsburg area as well. Um, what happens is our current political landscape, they cater to the seniors and the homeowners and leave everybody else out. It's like, if all right, you guys, whoever's not voting, we're not catering to you. And 9 times out of 10, our youth and our people that are not well to do not vote.
Many residents fear disconnection from City Hall. How would you rebuild that trust between leadership and community?
One thing that is needed is somebody that's on the ground. So I currently operate 2 offices in the West Ward, one inside Bradley Court Housing Projects and the other one on South Orange Avenue, the Newark Water Coalition. So I'm accessible. Whether I want to be or not, I'm in the office and I'm accessible. A lot of people, once they get into politics, they just aren't, you can't find them anymore. And that's the disconnect. It's like, yo, when you wanted my vote, you was all up in my face. But now that I have an issue, whether it's with slumlords or whether it's with crime, now you don't know what to do when you're not around. And that's a problem.
Mm. I know you mentioned the housing crisis. How, Muta, let me ask you. I know we and you we have a relationship, and we've been adamant with trying to get people to understand the housing crisis, affordability crisis with just the basic needs. When you talk to people, like you get there and you got their ear and you knuckling up with them, do they understand like we are basically in a major state of emergency, or they just have the mindset of struggle? Like we sometimes struggle becomes normal. So how are you able to explain that to them if they don't already know it?
So we've been talking about this for a while now, years. And when I first started talking about it and giving out the numbers and the charts, people were disconnected. Like you said, they're like, man, listen, I'm gonna put my head down, put in some more hours, and I'm gonna do what I gotta do, right? And what I was trying to explain to people was the trajectory of the housing costs would penetrate rent costs and everything else. And when I first started talking about the housing crisis, you can get a one bedroom for around $800, $900. Right now, a one bedroom is about $1,600, $1,700, and that's within a 3 4 year time period. So rent has basically doubled. So the people who didn't understand before, now I find them quoting some of my talking points. I find a lot of people regurgitating things that I was saying years ago.
So what are you doing with Newark Water Coalition? I know that's something that's very dear to you, getting people good, clean, sustainable water. What's the Newark Water Coalition about?
All right, Newark Water calls. Shout out to the executive director Anthony Diaz. What the North Water Coalition does, we had a water crisis around 2018, 2019 in Newark, where there was a bunch of lead in our water, and our politicians just basically ignored it and lied about it until a lawsuit was put in place. And at that time, you had advocates getting together to make sure that Newark has clean drinking water, and that's where the Newark Water Coalition was birthed. I came in maybe 2 years later and gave it basically a house inside the West Ward where it currently resides right now, 373 South Orange Avenue. And what it did was mix Anthony Diaz's love for environment and clean water and my practical ground relationships with the people and social programming. So what happened is a lot of people, they understood that that there was a water crisis, but they didn't know that it was free water available. So we linked the two and made sure that we got a lot of participation people in the neighborhoods and in that area come to get free water. And it turned into a thing right now where I think over 1 million gallons of water distributed in Newark over the past few years. So it's definitely been monumental to the community and clean drinking water, but also a safe space for people who want to organize community meetings. We've had open mics there. We recently just had a safety meeting there after the shooting that happened where 3 people got killed. So we had an emergency community meeting in order to bring the community together just to say, all right, listen, who are the faces who are willing to go out in these streets and be proactive and stopping or thwarting these conditions that we currently face. So the North Water Coalition is more than just a place to get water. We do food distributions there. There's also we give out free clothing there. And other resources. So I personally go around to other community centers inside Newark and get their pamphlets to understand what resources they possess so that we could bring them to the Newark Water Coalition. So when people come inside and they're looking for different various resources, we have different things to show them that's available.
When you when if I say to you, describe the West Ward of North as somebody that grew up from the West Ward, do you have that pride of saying, "Yo, this is my area of town"? Tell me some words that describe the West Ward right now.
Habitually neglected.
Mm.
The board has had bad representation for as far as I can remember, for definitely as far as I've been engaged. Um, just when in 2013, we had bad representation to where people were basically selling themselves out in order to not bring resources. So developers would, put money line the pockets of politicians, and that money would never see the community. So much so we had Councilman Joe McCullough, who was indicted a few years ago and currently just got sentenced to about 18 months federal for taking bribes. And this is the atmosphere of the West Ward. I love the West Ward. Don't get me wrong. I grew up there, and I'm closest to the problem, so I realize things that need to be changed, things that need to be upgraded, new ideas and initiatives that need to be brought to the West Ward in order to make it thriving.
As if they decide to elect you as their representative, as the council, do you think that you'll be able to, because that corridor, the South Orange Avenue corridor, is not small. It is the vein. And you have a lot of faith-based organizations on that whole strip.
Mhm.
Do you think that you'll be able to get everybody involved, like galvanize the people, like, look, we need to get out here, maybe like a Saturday, just like all the stores have like sidewalk sales, like what's some of the things that you think that you could really get people to be energized? Like I'm saying, if a person live in South Orange or West Orange and they just happen to be driving from downtown and be like, oh, what's going on out here? Everybody outside. Um, what's some of the things that you believe that you could really get everybody to have that pride of the West Ward once again?
One of the things that I'm going to implement immediately is the Safe Passage program. So I introduced the Safe Passage program a few years ago to the administration in hopes that we could get it started. It's supposed to run the whole corridor of South Orange Avenue from Dover Street to Bergen Street, which is the West Ward. And I was assured that this would come into fruition. Unfortunately, that was one of those political lies that people get told. But in pushing this safe passage program, I went to every single business on that corridor. I'm talking about walking from from Dover Street to Bergen Street, introducing myself to every business owner. And what I realized is a lot of the business owners want to be engaged. They want to be a part of a community. It makes them feel safer. It makes them feel like they're serving the community as opposed to exploiting it. So those stores and those businesses that I've already got positive feedback from, the only thing we do, we double back and we reintroduce this same program. The businesses that were reluctant, we treating it like Santa Claus. We got a naughty list and we got a nice list for these. So for these organizations or companies that do not aid in bringing a better quality of life to our community, we put them on the naughty list and we make sure the community knows who supports the community. So where our funding and where our dollars should be going to. And just in reference to getting the community involved, I've already got relationships with the Ivy Hill Tennis Association. I got relationships with UVSO, which is the United Velsburg organization. I got relationships with Masjid Muhammad. I got relationships with every organization up and down South Orange Avenue. I go into those businesses, those organizations regularly, whether it's a community center or whether it's, let's say, Sunrise. It's a Caribbean restaurant. They actually provide food for our fatherhood program that runs every Monday. So we're already doing the work. Now it's just like, all right, we got to get the garbage out of office.
Yes, it's amazing. Even talking to you, thinking about the memories of being on that 31 bus as kids, and you know I remember when they first, and you remember too, when they first built the Pathmark, how it was major that this was the first supermarket that was built in Newark after the riots,
Mm,
and how it changed the area and the university hospital, and everybody used to be in Velsburg Park back in the day, and uh,
hmm
if you could describe level of public safety um, in the West Ward, what level would you say it is?
The West Ward is doing pretty good when it comes to public safety. I'm not going to lie. Even though it's neglected for resources, the fact of the matter is the drug trade is essentially dissipated. So growing up, that drug trade fueled a lot of the violence that happened. So, I wouldn't say the West Ward is like Roselle or anything, but Newark in general has become safer.
Mm,
One of the things that I implemented in my area, right? I grew up in the Bradley Court area, so there was a lot of violence a few years ago. So I went out and I talked to the guys that was out there, right? I'm not judging anybody for what they're doing. I understand people have room for change, and I said, listen, please just don't have any shooting in here, right? If you guys are beefing amongst each other, could you please handle that wherever else? But in here, we got kids inside here, right? And just talking to them on that human level, that very summer, we had zero shootings, zero homicides, and it showed. But unfortunately, what happened after that, looking at the crime statistics, is it left a donut of violence around that area. So no violence inside that area.
yeah. It's interesting when you look at crime, and you have those relationships with people, and it's kind of like, not that you make a deal with them, but you tell them like, look, man, we got to do better conflict resolution in this particular area. But then they'd be like, okay, this is a no touch zone here, but if I catch you slipping over there, it's on.
Yes, yes, that
Muta, do you think that Newark has the resources, and the West Ward is just being neglected from Newark, or just Newark need more resources in general from the state and federal level?
Newark is the largest population in New Jersey. So Newark receives a lot of federal and state funding for whether it's homelessness, whether it's youth employment. So we do have the resources. It's just having the gall, having the ingenuity, having the bravery to bring forth new projects, to trust our youth to have ideas and to bring forth new projects. And let me give you the West Ward, right? We don't have any training facilities in the West Ward. So
Okay.
I training facilities would dissipate a lot of what's going on, because you have people who hopeless, who don't think, because they can't go to these certain areas, because now we living in a gang culture. So going to the South Ward could mean you getting shot. Now we talking about simple things like plumbing, carpentry, auto mechanics, CDLs. These trainings are life changing. These trainings are life changing. It's the difference between being hopeless and a 60K or better career.
It's interesting you brought that up, because when you talk about the training is life changing. What is the relationship now with New Community? I know the Archdiocese used to make sure that they had training within their facilities, or they're being underutilized now, or just they're not there no more.
Extremely underutilized. Extremely underutilized. Whether it's New Community or whether it's Urban League that's also in the Westwood that has those type of programs, extremely underutilized, underpromoted. So let's say one of the youth from 18 to 35 in my community who probably just came home from jail, right? Now, if nobody's pulling them to the side saying, listen, there's a program you could go to right now, you could get some employment and you could get some training. That right there changes your trajectory to where as though if that's not available, if that's not something that you see, right? Because if you don't see it, it don't exist. So making sure that these programs are properly advertised, right? We spend our government spends money on everything else, but when it comes to program that could actually benefit and create a better quality of life, they just say, all right, if it's on the website. But being on a website isn't enough. We got all
Yeah,
these.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I know that like you said, Urban League is right there. You got New Community, Urban Renewal is, a hop, skip, and a jump away. And it's like, we don't ever want to use these opportunities to ever call nobody out. But when you have council people or a mayor or whoever that are absent, you should have other people like district leaders who are able to say, okay, I can get the president of the Urban League in this particular area to come out. You can get New Community to come out to Archdiocese. Like like you said, the resources, people are sitting on them. They're there, but it's like nobody wants to take the leadership role.
Let me.
And go
You
ahead.
mentioned you mentioned something about district leaders, right? And getting engaged with politics, it let me know how disengaged district leaders are. So when I thought that district leaders was a pathway to information at first. I realized quickly that the district leaders are only a democratic tool, whether it's or Republican, because you got Republican district leaders and you got Democratic district leaders. And that is their sole purpose, to be democratic tools to procure votes during times of election. It's not for them to be daily operatives in their community to build a better quality of life.
Wow. So the system is broken.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's and the reason why I really wanted to talk about politics local is because we are and should be concerned about our national politics and understanding that the people who claim to represent us, no matter who they is, no matter what party they is something's broken. Something's broken with the connection. Something's broken with the connection where, like we said, you're in a corridor that, for lack of a better word, you got the faith-based organizations. You got all these people that are there that could be an asset to the community, and the community would be engaged. But it's like nobody knows who to talk to or who
Lack
to
of,
deal with.
lack of definite leadership. So, and this is not a shot towards the current councilman, right? But he just doesn't have the relationships or the permission from the administration to properly govern the West Ward. So when you have to go ask your bosses whether you can build relationships with community leaders, then that makes it hard for you to do your job, because the people that are closest to the problem are the solution. And if you can't engage and work with these people because your bosses say you can't, then that creates an issue. And you can't properly govern the West Ward in that manner.
Does the president uh council member, does he do walkthroughs through the West Ward?
Can't do walkthroughs unless he got a team of people with him. He's scared. Can't. He doesn't have the ground credibility to walk in the West Ward.
Wow. Well, wow, man. And so even when and you hope that your community elects you to be the council member, you know that this is going to be an uphill battle trying to reestablish relationships with the businesses, with everything that's going on in the corridor, and getting people to have trust. Like that level of benign neglect, they don't want to hear it. You have a lot of senior facilities in that corridor. How are you going to get them engaged? Like, are you willing to go in there? As they say, you might have to play some bingo every now and then with them to let them know, like, look, I know what's going on.
So my plan, right, is to do what I've been doing. So we call community meetings either monthly or bi-monthly. And this allows the community to get the information. And so whatever the numbers right now, whether it's the budget, whether it's the crime, we give those numbers to the community and allow the community to come up with solutions. So as an elected official, what that does is it assures a sizable turnout when we have these community meetings, because me as Muta, program director in the Water Coalition, I might have 13, 15, 20 people show up to a community meeting when really we need them doors packed. We need 100, 200 people to be coming out. We need to not even be able to use the Water Coalition. We need to be able to use the schools for these meetings. And given the West Ward, given the fact that I'm running for West Ward Council, I will have access to those buildings and those facilities to call major meetings, and that will be a monthly meeting, no matter what. No matter what, we will have monthly meetings to discuss the trajectory of our quality of life, our schools, and whatever programs are available, whatever. So if our seniors are having a problem, let's say we having a big slumlord issue right now. My thing is, let's not play around with these slumlords. Let's the same naughty and nice list we use for the businesses is what we use for our slumlords. Which landlords are doing good? Which landlords are doing bad? You're going to know which landlords are doing bad because you're constantly getting complaints, right? Those landlords that are doing bad, we make sure we start fining them. So if that means that if they're not fixing things and we have to go in and fix things and make sure we charge them, eventually we will be able to put liens on their property and get them up out of here. So I'm willing to use the heavy hand of policy in order to make my community better.
If just like I said, just thinking about the West Ward and knowing, the opportunities that was afforded to us, that if you lived in that area, 14, 15 years old, you could jump on that 70, go up to the mall, maybe have a little job. Like, what opportunities is there for our younger people? I know you are influential every day doing the computer labs with the kids. Like, outside of running a daycare, I don't think there's nobody that's more around kids than you. Um, I'm being honest. It's a joke, but I'm being honest. What is there for, like, the 15, 16 year olds that's just starting to find themselves, understanding, like, yo, I want a couple dollars in my pocket, nice young lady I want to meet. What is in the area as far as, like, what could they look forward to as far as, like, a job, and how it used to be, go up the hill, deliver newspapers, shovel some snow. What's the opportunities for the younger people?
So that's where the disconnect comes in at. We have been negligent in dealing with our late teens and early 20s. We haven't figured out where to place them. And that's where training comes in at. At 15, you're able to. I was in wood shop way before 15. So when we grew up, we had wood shop, home economics, and things like that. So utilizing the businesses that are around, we have a body shop that's on the corner of Munn and South Orange Avenue. Going to that body shop and saying, listen, how many people can you train? Are you willing to train? But we're not really asking them. We're not really asking them. We kind of demanding that they provide this service to our community. You in our community getting money. Listen, how many people can you train? And but I got it wasn't I got a good response out of them. So as long as you're going in face to face and you're having a respectful dialogue with the business owners, they don't really have a problem with contributing. You know, it's when you don't show up and you don't ask those questions and you don't even have those ideas in your head where you're never going to get those results. So there are a lot of opportunities that we miss right now because nobody's having those dialogues. And me being elected, all of those options are on the table.
And we always talk about the dilemma. You know, my favorite dilemma, I always say, activism and politician don't mix well.
I never consider
um,
myself to be an activist. Somehow,
you, you know what it is that because the reason why I say that, and I don't want to take away from us having this talk is about you, is that politicians sometimes got to play a game where activism you can't play no games. You just you on go. You don't understand nothing. You got to get what you got to get for who you advocating for. And that could be subjective on how people view it. What like I asked you what and why now, Muta? Like being at city hall meetings. I watch the city hall meetings from afar,
mhm,
and with all due respect to how they run their city hall meetings, but it's literally like y'all just sitting there, um, very dismissive towards your constituents
mhm.
when they're coming up there making public complaints behind the glass. And it's really sad that they have to be behind the glass for safety when, for the most part, we know these people, they grew up in the same communities as us, but you wouldn't be behind the glass if if it wasn't an issue.
But
And you know, me and you come from backgrounds where,
not only behind the glass, but there's also you guys don't really see it, but there's also like 10 police inside there.
and let me ask you, as a Newark resident, and I had this conversation yesterday, man. You remember if you wanted to see the mayor, if you wanted to see when Sharp James was in, if he was in that office, you was gonna see him. You could
Absolutely.
just walk up and say, "I need to see the mayor."
Hmm.
What's the problem? I just need to see the mayor. I need to talk to him, and he was readily available. Do you think that disconnect is why it is a disconnect with the resources?
All right, I'm gonna give you a true story. When this administration first got in office, um, I was going to different facilities trying to get resources, jobs, and training for myself, right? And when you go to these places, they treat you as if you are less than not that I'm going through something right now. I just need a little bit of assistance to get ahead. They looking at you like they doing a favor. And one other thing is they realize that their time in that space was limited. So they're trying to get enrich themselves as much as they could until their time runs out. And a lot of politicians think that way. I'm only going to be in here for this long. So that means they're trying to take advantage of every contract that comes in. They're not trying to allocate that to anybody else unless it's one of their friends or family. They trying to take advantage of every upper level position. So a lot of our politicians have more than one job role within the city. And if you got 100, if you making 100,000 as a council person, why would you have to make 100,000 on the board of such and such? It doesn't make it takes away from somebody else getting that job, somebody who's probably more qualified. And that's
Mhm.
what that's what we have going on.
So
We
when
have
we so when I say um things like to you, Moet, Newark Now, those programs, Moet, Sharp James had that program, Mayor's Office of Employment Training. Cory Booker, when he was the mayor, he did the Newark Now, where he tried to get city, county, and state resources all in one locale. So if you came there and they didn't have the resources on the city level, they sent you to the county level, and vice versa to the state level. They don't have that type of like resource now, or you go there and you basically get the door shut.
before those services were general services to help the public. I'm not saying that they don't help the public now in some senses. However, those positions are currently springboards in order to move up in politics. So a person will use their job at a Moet, well, we just going to say a Moet, right? In order to say, this is what I've been doing for my people. And next thing you know, they're going to be an elected official. So as opposed to saying, listen, I want to help people and this is what I'm going to do to help people, they're only using that position as a springboard, and it shows. So a lot of the job positions that they're offering are warehouse positions that don't pay enough in order to survive in Newark, um, and low paying jobs that people just not interested in no more. You can't tell a person to work for $15. You can't tell a grown person to work for $15 an hour living in Newark, New Jersey. It just doesn't make sense.
Mm. So it's an uphill battle. It's definitely when you understand the landscape, like you said, and you dealing with right now, and you need the resources right now, and understanding just the whole. And for those that don't know, in the chat who may look at the playback, if you're dealing with public transportation, you have to catch one bus to get to a transfer bus. So
Mhm,
you may have to go to North Newark. They may have the resources for La Casa. I'll just use that.
mhm,
You may have to go to La Casa to get resources for your light bill, and you live in South Ward.
mhm.
So now you catching two buses. This is an all-day project, and you may get told no.
Especially if you're talking about Lacasa and you look like us, that's a whole different issue. But I'm not going to throw Lacasa under the bus right now.
Yeah. It's a very, very I know when you have to use those resources and they tell you, well, you don't fit the criteria for certain things, it could be very, very disheartening. Well, Muta, man, you want to leave us with something, bro? I mean, this is really when you even us having a conversation, us having a prior relationship to this conversation, just to chop it up like this and to talk about it, you really start for me, you really see the reality of the situation.
Mhm,
Um, a lot of people could sit and say, "Oh, this, that, and the third," but no way that this city, this Renaissance city, should be going backwards instead of forward. I mean, we, former Mayor Sharp James was very, very proudful of that arena
mhm,
finally getting built and what it was going to do for the economy and fixing up the light rail and you know a lot of the other businesses. I remember Panasonic coming to Newark and what he did fighting for the port jobs for the residents of Newark and so forth. And even Pathmark leaving, and well, they went bankrupt, so it wasn't their fault. But even now, having the shop right there, and you know, understanding that in Westward, you might have to go to ShopRite in East Orange before you can get to ShopRite in Newark, which is a couple blocks over because of the transportation issue, or you can't get up the hill, but you can go across town quicker.
Yeah, I'm on Sanford, so I'm definitely going to East Orange shop right
Yeah,
before. Yes,
yeah, yeah. So Muta, man, give us some final words and what you want to say to your future constituents, like why they should vote for you.
well, first, I want to anybody that's in the audience right now that's listening on, please put down if you got a question for me. I don't care what the question is. Ask the question right now. We could either get to it now if it pops up, or I'll answer it in the future. In the future, I want you to ask me your hardest question because a lot of these questions was pretty easy, right? Because they flew right into my specialty. I want you to ask me a difficult question right now. I want you to ask me something that you would ask somebody who's not your friend.
Well, I mean, I understand the task at hand.
Hmm.
I understand, the sacrifice that you've made, even prior to deciding to run. I mean, it's a personal sacrifice. A lot of people, I mean, these positions don't pay no money. This is all voluntarily. This is not for status. Like you are a person, and I'll be honest. Like for the people in the chat, he's from Bradley Court. He's not from nowhere else in the West Ward. He's from Bradley Court. Bradley Court broke him, and Bradley Court made him for who he is today. And giving back to the kids and trying to make change, it's not easy.
Mm.
So if I were a voter in the West Ward, how are you going to help us?
All right. So, one of the things I would use my relationships with the various organizations in the West Ward. So, I just came through meeting with the organization on 16th Avenue, and they don't have any relationships with any of the other community organizations in the West Ward, but they do great work. They do reentry work. They got a women's reentry house, and then right now they're currently about to occupy another house for men's reentry. They also do free, they also help people with their license. They also help people who are currently on a bracelet who need to have a safe space in order to do job searches and things of that nature. So just outlining and pointing out where all these community centers at. So that's one of the things. Listen, we got how many community centers in the West Ward? Let's have that meeting. So this doesn't have to be with the general public, but the people who actually provide services, so that we know we could connect the dots where the trouble, where we're missing services at, right? Because if we're not connecting these dots, this people, everybody might be doing the same thing, and that's not how you receive the best results. We want to make sure that a person receiving services doesn't come services here, get a lack of services here, then have to go here and get a lack of services and never really get help, right? So that's one of the things I plan to do immediately is connect those dots and realize what resources we actually have and how they're going to work best for us. Another thing is our seniors. Our seniors are being used as pawns, right? Um, so yeah, I will have a bingo game with them, got with our seniors. But also,
You
I want to
you brought up something. You brought up something earlier, and you just made me think about it when you brought up 16th Avenue because I didn't even. Sometimes you think of the area and you'd be like, I forget West Side Park and
absolutely.
over. West Ward is huge. And this idea that you have, um, understanding all the abandoned lots, the number blocks is notorious for a bad reputation. I think it gets a bad reputation, uh, personally. But knowing all of the abandoned buildings, all of the empty lots, do you think that you could try to find who are the Newark developers and give them pitch them the idea? Because an outsider would come in and say, "Well, your idea of tube housing is great, but I'm going to do it and I'm going to make money and I'm going to try to profit and get rich off of this." Instead of a Newark developer, like, "Look, I understand what you're doing. We need to attack this affordability crisis, this homeless crisis, all at one, and we have the space." And I know that the mayor will give a good deal for some property if the city owns that property. A lot of the property that's even privately owned is probably in foreclosure with a boatload of back taxes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because you really don't want to. What's unfortunate is that you don't want to bring in a developer or talk to a developer that'll be predatory, because this has been the issue even before it was predatory landlords coming in, slumlords, and the winter that we just had with the coldness, you know, it could really be. You don't want to compound the crisis that already exists. So I really wish you the best, man, and because it's a tough task, but I think you can do the task. I think you are able to organize people,
Let me tackle
because I know that.
let me tackle this issue on the developers, right? Currently, under this administration, they have preferred developers, right? And it's not to say that they're not Newark based. Are they Newark? Newark based and having a Newark address or PO box is a big difference from you really being a Newark developer. And I have relationships with a few Newark developers. What we want to do is stop the nepotism, right? And of course, developers they develop to make money. But when we're talking about container homes and tiny homes, right? That's a whole new field, right? And getting our youth trained in order to produce these, right? So we could have developers that develop, but we need training, right? We need to be able to not only produce this, but upkeep it. And that's important. So making sure that our developers are willing to train Norkers. If you're not willing to train Norkers, then we don't need you. We need sustainability, and the only way sustainability happens is Norkers are at work at a cost that can provide a living in Newark. But also in these tiny home villages, we also must implement a social aspect. So if you're getting a tiny home for a nominal cost, you have a social responsibility to keep your neighborhood clean. You have a
Mm,
social responsibility to volunteer somewhere at least one day a week. And getting back to a community again, my motto is it takes a village. One person cannot solve anything. So, as much as I say these ideas do not involve just me. It involves us coming together as a community and saying, all right, we have to get it done. What am I responsible for? What are you responsible for? What are you responsible for? And let's get it done. It's something like a hand, right? Right, by my hand by itself, you could break a finger because each finger is weak. But once we ball up a fist and come together, we can strike our mighty blow.
yeah, yeah. Well, great conversation, man. Look forward to having you on again. Uh, and
Well, the election is May 12th. So we got a few months. I look forward to being a regular, even if you got other other guests on, as long as it's not an intimate conversation. You like before we it's like four of us on here. You like I like those type of things to where you hear other people. We hear other people's
Yeah, yeah.
doubts.
I'm gonna try to work on some stuff where it's some collective minds. Maybe I don't know if I would be hosting a debate, but like I said, most of the people that I know that are running for a seat in the city, their intention are good. Um, I can't speak for the ones that are part of the establishment or want to be, one of the boys. But I'm being honest. I only can see what I see, and understanding that, everybody wants to put, as we would say, Newark first, and really having an impact on their community. And
Are you saying you're willing to have a candidate forum up here?
yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah, I'll
Um,
moderate it. I'll
I,
do it.
I'll start reaching out to some of the
Yeah,
potential
if
candidates.
they're willing to come on, I mean, and just shoot ideas to each other, and I'll pose questions to everybody. I'll get another I'll get another moderator as myself that don't have the intimate relationship with you,
Thank
so
you.
nobody can feel like I'm loading the deck on them. And like I said, one of the things that I do know is everybody cares about the city of Newark. As Newark goes, New Jersey goes.
Absolutely.
People can say what they want about how Sharp James took care of his people. And when I
Mm.
mean he took care of his people, he cared about Newark, New Jersey. Um, so much so that a lot of things that happened after he left office would have never happened on his watch. Um,
Just, just to be clear, the Moet program was an excellent program by Sharp James. I first acquired my CDL license at the age of 19 through the Moet program, and I was an orphan. So my mother passed when I was 14. So I was misguided and in the streets, and because of the Moet program, it allowed me to gain the skill and gain a different perspective of life at that, if I may say so. So,
yeah,
yeah, sharp,
yeah.
you know,
Bring back Mayor's Office of Employment Training. Really, really great program, man. And he really had people involved, and as they say, got down and dirty. And he was one of those people, speaking about him and understanding that, for a lot of us that have made feelings good, right, wrong, and different about Jesse Jackson, sometimes our titans who were part of that movement from the 60s and 70s who carried it on, they did a lot of boots on the ground work that they never got their accolades and their flowers for. And Sharp James really, really, he shook a hand and he made a friend and with a lot of people, and he was out there with the people. So with that, man, Muta, I appreciate you coming on, man, and I look forward to and being able to moderate this debate. It'll be very interesting, and I know that we'll have some fun with it, and we'll go from there.
yes, sir. Peace and blessings to everybody. May 12th is the election. It takes a village. Muta El-Amin, vote West Ward City Council.